go.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Ask Anything presented by Mosher Consulting. I'm your host, Angel Leon, Mosher's Director of Personnel. We're glad you're with us for this episode of Ask Anything, and with us today is a special guest who's going to be talking with us about her personal life and how that catapulted her to the person who she is today. We'll be speaking with Jamie McCabe, founder of the first special needs living magazine here in Indiana. Jamie grew up in Waterford, Michigan, and graduated from Waterford Mott High School. She moved to Indianapolis in 2007 to work with Cutco Cutlery, where she ran a district office in Kalamazoo, Michigan, as a district manager. She has 3 kids, Jordan, who's 11, Jalen, who's 6, and Jade, who's 4. Her son started having seizures at 18 months old and was diagnosed with autism at almost 5 years old. He has always been nonverbal, but over the last year, he has made some incredible progress. She started working as a franchise owner with the N2 company in 2013. She has run multiple community magazines over the last decade. From her pain to purpose, she started the first special needs living magazine here in Indiana in 2020. They expanded to Ohio in 2022, and she is proud to bring one to her home state of Michigan to celebrate, support, connect, and impact the special needs community. She loves to camp, travel, and help to encourage others. Jamie, it's great to have you with us and Ask You Anything to talk about such an incredible topic. I personally have to share that I have 2 nephews back home in Puerto Rico that are autistic themselves. They're grown-ups now, with one of them being 22 and the other being 19. The oldest went to college, graduated, and now works as an electrical engineer apprentice. And the youngest is still in college. He's currently going for his bachelor's degree, and I am really very excited to hear your story and that of your son. So again, Jamie, welcome to Ask Anything. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. Glad to be here.
This is, as I mentioned, it's kind of near and dear to my heart because of my nephews, but I want to start by asking, how did this all start for you? Because I describe a little bit in the bio about your son having seizures at an early age and at almost 5 being diagnosed with autism. So how did this all start for you?
That's a really great question. It's a lot to unfold. Each and every family has such a tremendous journey, what they go through, what they experience, what they overcome. And a lot of it are dreams and vision and expectations for what we expect our future to be and expect our future to look like. And oftentimes, very quickly, we learn that many of what we expect is not always what is. And the process of that grief and kind of unfolding that is part of that journey. And for me, that's what's kind of shaped that pain to purpose aspect of it. When my son at 18 months started having seizures, it was probably one of the scariest moments of my life as I was holding him and he was eating a banana. I wasn't quite sure if he was choking, so I immediately checked and realized really quickly that no, it was definitely not choking. It was a full-blown seizure. So rushed him to the emergency room. He ended up having multiple seizures that day while at the emergency room. So they did diagnose him with epilepsy, complex partial frontal focal seizures. And it was a journey. We never know what day he would have them, what day he wouldn't. Oftentimes he would not want to eat or drink, very lethargic afterwards, and really regressed big time in his speech and development, which was also very hard. We actually have video footage of him at just before having seizures, pointing to his nose and eyes and ears and mouth and doing all the things that a typical 18-month-old would be doing. And it was a few weeks later when he started having seizures. And here he is 11, and still he doesn't have the capacity to, point to his eyes, nose, ears, or mouth. So the journey for me with him having seizures, and for the first 7 years of his life, we don't have local family. I grew up in Michigan, and his family was out in Missouri. So we don't have local family here. For the first 7 years of my son's life, we didn't know anybody that had kids with special needs. So that's a very isolating and kind of lonely world to live in. And I thought to myself, there's no way I'm the only parent in Indy that has a child with special needs that kind of feels this way. But for me, it was much about plugging into community, trying to find people out there, finding ways that I can support others and support myself as I'm navigating through this journey. And just trying to hang on and take things day by day. Thankfully, I worked with a company, with the N2 company, in a position where I could have a little bit more balance and flexibility. So days that he did have seizures, I was able to be there for him and care for him and make sure that he was eating and drinking and very well, taken care of during those times. And, and her brother would look down at her and then she would giggle and then he would pull back, and then she would pull herself up and look at him and he would giggle. And so back and forth, they were kind of doing that. And I thought to myself, goodness, like this, whatever we're doing, it's helping, because you can see that fog kind of be lifted, and he's kind of blossoming in his own way. And I firmly believe, because we took the reins of, gluten-free, dairy-free supplementation, removing the metal detoxification, that he's a very genuinely just happy-go-lucky, just and like loves life person, just, which I love about him so much. Like, no fear, knows no wrong, he knows no fear, he knows no evil. Like, he just loves life, and you can just see like the blissful joy, in him all the time. And from my own personal journey, I actually was able to come alongside a community called Purposeful Living. They're a local nonprofit here in Indiana, and they help the modern woman that on the outside looks like she has it all together, but deep down is broken, searching, and lonely. And I was in that place, and I needed, support. And so they offered that. They offer the free care and the free prayer, and their coaching program was just phenomenal. And I was able to plug into their growth groups, not just as a growth group leader, but to also help facilitate, growth groups for others as well. And those around fruit of the spirit and my destiny and my identity. And actually they are rolling out a whole nother series this fall, for people to plug into, whether they're local and want to join in person or virtual. Those growth groups are phenomenally impactful, and have really had a huge transformation in my life, along with Purposeful Living. In fact, their mission is help the modern woman heal, and then come alongside safe, authentic community and find their purpose. And when they do, they can really make a bigger impact in the community around them. And so plugging in that way, being able to run Bible studies for families that had kids with special needs. There was a book actually called The Life We Never Expected. And if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. It's a book written by two parents. Husband and wife both have two severely autistic children, one son, and then a couple of years later, they had their daughter who was also diagnosed. And it really talks about the stages of grief, from waiting and to witnessing to treasuring, like all those stages. And that book I probably read a good 4 or 5 times, but it really truly helped me do a lot of processing and a lot of healing, because a lot comes with that, those dreams and expectations and visions of what the future will hold, and then what it is. And in life, we have choices to make at that time. We can decide to let what our current circumstance is define us in a way that we can stay in a victimhood, mentality for a long period of time, or we can say, hey, how do we want to live out our life through this challenging situation and circumstance, and what does this mean for us moving forward, and how can we use this in a way that inspires other people to not feel so alone as they're navigating through it. And so that was kind of my main focus, is really just honing in on, God, how can you turn my pain to purpose, and how can you help me find a way to help other people who are navigating this. And my background's in publishing, and so I started with the M2 company in 2013, and from there, I've been doing magazines for years with them and helping with local communities. And it really was 2019 in the fall when I clearly heard, when my youngest child was 5 months old, Holy Spirit say, you've been doing magazines for 8 years and sharing stories and running events and really impacting community. You could start a special needs magazine. And so with that vision, I thought, goodness, what a blessing that would make for the community, because I knew there wasn't anything that directly connected families to resources, or families, to each other in that kind of capacity, giving them a chance to share their story, to help other people navigate their own, to shift perspective, to hear about ways they've overcome, those challenges. And I went to my company and I thought, goodness, like, I'll just share it with them. And the worst they can say is no, but it's worth at least sharing. And right. I went to them and shared that, and immediately, they told me to run with it. So I thought, goodness, we got to figure it out. And of course, 2020 pandemic hit, people were feeling even more alone and isolated. And we thought we have to get this out to the community. So thankfully, we published in November of 2020. It's been around 3 years now and reaching over 30,000 people in the state, and even people worldwide, which is phenomenal. People in the Philippines and United Kingdom and in Syria. We even get messages from special education teachers on how the magazine is giving them resources and insights and things that they should implement out there to support their special needs families and individuals. And I didn't know the statistic until I started digging into it, but gosh, over I believe 80% of the population that has any type of special need and disability live in a third world country, and they obviously don't have as many access to supports and resources. So what I think is so phenomenal is how little old Indiana magazine is potentially having ripples of impact, in third world countries. It's I could definitely go on and on about the types of stories and ripples of impact that have happened from the magazine here. But just to share a couple, my son now, because of the resources we found in the magazine, his vocalizations and speech has blossomed in a way that we've been dreaming of for years. We're not quite there, but we're definitely making a lot of progress quicker than we've seen in a long time in positive interactions therapy. And Julie Walker there does a special type of Gestalt speech therapy. And my son is a Gestalt learner, and he doesn't communicate through vocals like words. He doesn't see words like you or I see words. If we say, how are you today? He sees that as all one word. And so for many years, we would communicate through song. I would sing, I love you, you love me. And then he would kind of fill in, we're a happy family. It was like not like a word, but more of a tone that you could hear. He understood, he knew, he was trying to fill in those blanks. He wouldn't quite say I love you, but when I would say it, he'd lean in and give me a kiss, so he knew what it means, which is just so neat to see. And the therapies and services we found through doing the magazine, running and learning about the educational scholarship account that exists locally here and tapping into support there for funding. And now our son is transitioning to the first ever Montessori ABA elementary school this fall, which will be phenomenal for him to have that experience. So not only did the magazine that I started to help the community, but it's in turn helping our own son with the supports that can help him, like Destination Region. They offer stem cell therapy. So we're able to receive, support through what they offer there as well. So yeah, I'm excited to continue. We just launched one in Michigan, my hometown where I grew up. And my brother growing up, he had ADD, ADHD, ODD, struggles a little bit with mental health. And so my mom has over 25 years in the mental health community, working as a parent support advocate. And she's on board as our account executive up in the Michigan area, which is exciting. So it's cool to bring a resource to the community that I grew up in and to really serve the community there. So one day there'll be one in every major city in the nation. I won't be running it because it's a full-time job just to do the two that I'm doing, but I did become a launch director. So I'm really happy to help coach and mentor other people when the timing is right. And if they have an interest in their local city to start one, certainly might be happy to have a conversation and talk through opportunities when the opportunity becomes available to start one in that local city. So yeah, a lot of information, a lot of stuff happening, but that's kind of a little bit about the journey.
Yes, there's a lot of information, a lot to unpack there, but I want to go back to a little bit of what you mentioned about your experience with your son and how when you first started to see that light between the cloud, as you call it, how does that felt for you? I mean, because I imagine that is such a breakthrough when you are seeing something day in and day out, and then you finally see something different that's positive, that it warms my heart just to hear you say it. So could you run a little bit back that experience for you?
Yeah, it's the small milestones that mean the most, right? Like you work so hard to be like, one day it'd be great if he could eat, on his own. And now to be at a stage where he's using his fork, and he's actually able to take his plate from the counter onto the table and sit down, and like he can take it when he's done to the sink. And and that's just really neat to see those like small little wins happen over time. I remember for years, even recently, I was wallowing in my head. I was like, man, Jordan, you're 10, we've been practicing getting dressed every day for 10 years. You think by now you'd be able to put your shirt on, your pants on, like your sisters are 4 and 5 and they can dress themselves, like, why can't you? And so I'm not obviously outwardly saying this, but I'm in my head thinking this. I remember a story that was written by a girl with cerebral palsy, and she is not able to communicate using her voice. She can't use her hands, so she has no ability to sign. The only way for her to communicate is with a device hooked up to her wheelchair, and she uses her toe to type. And so she wrote her whole life story by toe. And I read that story and I was in tears as I was reflecting, and I was thinking, goodness, like here we are complaining about the weather, and she has to use her toe to communicate what she needs. And in her story, she shared that it can take her close to 2 hours every day just to get dressed. And when I read that, I thought, goodness, talk about a perspective shift. Here I am complaining about getting my son dressed in 5 minutes, and it's taking her 2 hours, right? And so for me, like, it's such a blessing just to watch those like little milestones and to see things in a different perspective, because it is truly humbling. I, yes, can grieve and have moments of grief of, he may not ever get married one day. He may not ever graduate. He may not drive his own car. He may, not have a job where he can work on his own. I know he'll find a skill and he'll use his skill in such a great way, but he may not have a way to work independently or financially, to support himself. And those are all things you hope to see one day. But what I do know is I don't have to worry if he's going to be making some not so good decisions when he's, a teenager or adult, or, like, there's so many other things that come with life and challenges that people do have to go through, that it just, to me, puts things in a totally different perspective, to really just be appreciative of what you do have and kind of see the light in it. So yeah, for any families or people that are struggling about what is and what they want to be, my encouragement would be just to keep doing what you're doing and keep having hope and to keep pushing through, because it's one thing at a time, one moment at a time, and partnering with great local community connections and resources and people that can come alongside you and support you as a parent and your child, on that journey, because it takes a whole team, and it takes you advocating, for their needs to help them, be as fulfilled and live as fulfilled of a life as possible.
My wife is a special education teacher. She's worked in moderate to severe classrooms, life skills, Thrive programs for almost 25 years now. And what you were saying about building that team and having as many people and as many resources, not just for your child, but for you and your family. The more you can reach out, the larger your team, the more resources you can research and get working for you, that opens up that many more opportunities or chances for opportunities for your kid.
Yeah, that's so true. Love it. You hit the nail on the head there. Resources are absolutely key. It was My Quello Connect. They recently came out with an app. It's covered by the waiver supports as well, and pretty phenomenal. I was impressed thoroughly and learned that instead of having to have 15 million conversations with all the different people on their team, you can upload it all to one site and everyone can see everything at one space. They can communicate about what the needs are for your child, what they're working on, so everyone can be working on the same thing at the same time. If you're going out of town, you can communicate that. If they have a seizure, like, it's all there, and videos can be uploaded, and it's a really kind of unique tool. So we're in process of kind of implementing that, as a support to help him and to better, assist him and keep everybody on the same page. So yeah, the more my dad's saying is, the more you know, the more you find out you don't know. So it's good to know what's out there.
Yeah, that's very true. That's a very true statement. Let's talk about your career now. So from your early experiences with your son, what let you, and I think you touched a little bit on this, but what led you to begin this current chapter with the Special Needs Living magazine?
So for me, starting Special Needs Living came from my background of working with the N2 company and having experience working with multiple magazines and multiple communities. And I knew that this same platform could potentially be one that would help support, impact, and connect families and individuals with special needs. So then I went to them with the idea that I truly feel Holy Spirit led on my heart and placed on my heart, and right place, right opportunity, right timing, and shared with them the opportunity to do something like this, which they gave me the reins to do, and we were able to publish it in 2020. So I would say, yeah, it came from personal experience, but also pain to purpose to help other people out there.
Really quickly, how has your journey helped others along the way as you developed the magazine, when you started, and obviously even before the magazine, with your son, with your experiences with your son? How has your journey helped others along the way?
The journey has certainly helped others and myself in a substantial amount of ways. A few that I can think of, I recently, today, actually had a mom reach out and say, the Special Needs Moms Weekend retreat that you put on, like, that gave me so much hope and encouragement. Like I needed that weekend and that time away from those experiences that we can create, running local events through the magazine, like a bowling event. And you hear people say like, my son's 21 and we've never been bowling. And this is our very first time going out in the community and bowling together, creating opportunities for people to come into the community where they're comfortable, not judged, and can feel safe and try different things and be more confident to want to continue going back out into the community. It's been really great to hear. We did a story where another mom reached out a couple months after the article came out, and she said, can you let that mom know that like her story is my story? And that's the first time in my life that I ever felt understood. And can you tell her thank you, like for sharing her story? And I thought, how powerful, just to feel understood, for the very first time, that's huge. Testimonies from an amazing ministry called Mark II Ministries. They're a supporter of special needs living, and they help churches start special needs ministries. And we did an article. Every month we feature a different nonprofit, and we highlight them for free. As long as they support families and individuals with special needs, we want people to know who they are and what they do and bring awareness to them so that people can tap into and utilize those resources. And so we highlighted Mark II Ministries, and that one story led to 4 churches reaching out and starting their own local special needs ministry. And you just think of the ripples of impact that can happen from now families being able to attend a church and having a support staff and team and people there to help and come alongside them. And so that it just means so much to hear people that are utilizing and benefiting from not only the stories shared, but the resources that are in there as well.
What can you tell us about the event, about the night out that you just mentioned? Because I'm sure people will be curious.
Oh yeah, so we actually did our first ever Special Needs Moms Weekend Retreat back in May this year, the weekend before Mother's Day, and Teeter Organic Farms hosted that weekend event, and we had several coaches from Purposeful Living come in and do several healing workshops and growth workshops, and there were mindfulness moments and just time for them moms to connect with each other. We did a wonderful ladies' night and music around the fire, and just it was for many of the moms, the 24 that were there, they've never had a weekend away without their kids. And it was very rejuvenating and refreshing. And we are in process of looking at Resounding Joy, which is another partner of ours. They a music therapy company. They are also a nonprofit, and they provide music therapy support and service for veterans and special needs families. And they came and provided a lot of the music and entertainment during the event, which was great. But they're tapping into looking at if there are grants available. They just recently applied for one in hopes that we can use that money for future special needs weekend retreats for families. And we found that a lot of parents and moms would love to go, but unfortunately they are the sole provider for their special needs children. And they oftentimes are single moms and they can't ever get away. They don't have anyone to watch their kids, so they can't get away for an extended period of time. So we were definitely looking for people that could potentially come alongside and support, these families' children during these particular weekend retreats so that they can get a break, because that's very, very important as well.
I was going to say one of the things that gets probably overlooked, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is exactly what you just mentioned, is parents who are always there for their kids and they don't have that one day, half a day, maybe to just disconnect for a second. And I'm not saying, hey, I don't want to be there, but it is taxing. I can imagine how taxing it is on any individual, let alone a single mother who is caring for this child, to have a second to herself. And so I'm very happy to hear your story about how well it went at the event, because as a parent of 3 boys who can take any opportunity to get out of the house whenever he can with my wife, I can only begin to understand how it would feel for somebody who is caring for a child with any type of disability. And I know that with my sister. So, luckily she was married for a very long time. Now they're separated, but that's neither here nor there. I can only imagine how hard it is. And just to receive that small window to just get a second to exhale and take part in a night out, take part in those workshops, and just grow yourself personally. That must be so fulfilling for them.
Absolutely. It's so necessary. And thankfully, the family sports waiver, the Asian disabled waivers, different waivers out there do offer PAC and respite, and there are great companies that can help with that in that essence. But there's also ways, where you as a parent could become a provider, for your child as well, and support them in those ways, especially if you don't have the time to work because you're a full-time caregiver for your loved one or child. So you need to have, there are supports out there, that you can utilize for receiving, financial support to be the sole provider for your child. But it doesn't always give you the break too that you need. Right. As well. And, unfortunately, I don't know if you probably know the statistic, but I believe now it's close to 87% of parents that have special needs kids, married couples that have kids with special needs, end in divorce, which is a very high, staggering figure. So much so, we last year did an event in the fall, our special needs parent and caregiver empowerment day, and we did really a big focus within that was for married couples to talk with, and go through a whole message that talked about raising a special needs child as a married couple, and how to navigate that, which is phenomenal. Actually, Mark II Ministries, Aaron there, he has an awesome program on marriage enrichment, which I highly recommend taking. It was definitely transformational. Fortunately for me, I was 14 years, married, 14 years with my ex, and 7 years married, and he actually filed for divorce in February. So that was a season of life that I've recently walked through, and not an easy season to go through, but full hope and trust that, God has a plan, and he always does. And there's so many things in life are outside of our control, and we get to choose how we want to show up despite our circumstances. For me, that's been the biggest lesson of life in the last couple of years, right? Is choosing joy despite the difficulty.
Right. That's a great way to live. This next question actually kind of touches on what you were just talking about. What advice would you give to people who are in a similar situation as you were when you first found out of your son's diagnosis?
So many things I could pack into that statement. Like, where do I start? Don't be too hard on yourself. Surround yourself by community and people that will love you well. Write down all the things that scare you and that you're worried about. Write down the future that you want to have despite your circumstances. Plug in, find resources, join groups. Don't feel like you have to do it alone, and don't feel like you're the only one that's going through what you're going through. Purposeful Living Inc. is an incredible organization to plug in with, great supportive ladies there, local church groups, Bible study group. I mean, there's just so many just incredible resources out there, people willing to come alongside you and kind of support you through the journey. And asking other people, asking them what they've been through and what's helped them is, I think, why I'm so passionate about special needs living and getting it out to the community, because I don't want people to feel alone, and I want them to know that they have resources that exist. That's the biggest things for me I found that were helpful. It doesn't mean things are going to hit you in waves. There's days that things are great, and then there's days that things are not so great. There's actually Hal Elrod, who is a publisher of a book called The Miracle Morning. He's gone through so much in his life, from a car accident that should have killed him, being told he'd never be able to walk again, to now fully being able to walk, and then he went through cancer, was told he was going to die from that, and he's still alive. And just so many, he's such a great story, Hal Elrod does. And I remember he shared something that really registered with me, and something that I kind of hold on to and will gravitate towards, is when he said, interrupt interruptions. And I thought, I really like that, right? Like, we could have things planned out to a T, exactly how we want things to happen, and it's never going to go that way, unfortunately, right? And it's because things don't go that way that we kind of get off our game or upset, or things just feel not how they should be. But it's not the plan you have of things going right. It's the plan that you have for things that don't go right. It's your interruption plan that you should have. And how are you going to navigate when things don't go the way that you want them to go? When I heard that, I really kind of pulled towards that interruptions, phase, because we're going to have many interruptions in our life. And it's how we choose to navigate those interruptions that happen in our life that are going to help us get back on track quicker.
Yeah, I like that. Interruptions. I might have to start that with my team. So really quick before we go, where can people find your magazine?
Yeah, a few ways. Special Needs Living Magazine. You can Google us and find a great link there that'll take them there. Happy to share the link that will take people directly to our main site where people can subscribe. It's free on behalf of the supporters that help make it possible. If anyone is interested in potentially being a supporter or coming alongside us, certainly I'd love to have a conversation and share more about ways we can partner together to make a bigger impact in the special needs community. Our team is fully equipped in helping design, create, and put in messages together to share that information with the community every month. And yeah, so online, social media as well, Facebook, we're on there, Special Needs Living Magazine. Obviously, we have one in Indiana, Ohio, and in Michigan. So there are 3 different, places to plug into currently. So there's ways to submit stories or share stories. So if people have a story they'd like to share, certainly they can let us know. We are in process of planning our Special Needs Parent and Caregiver Empowerment Day in November on the 11th this year at White River Christian Church. And our focus this year will be on transitions and restoration and hope. So if anyone would like to potentially speak or be on a panel or have resources they want to share at that event, we'd be happy to talk more about that event that's coming up in November as well.
All right. Thank you very much, Jamie. We really
I
appreciate
might have one more thing I want to say, if possible. And so don't feel like you have to include this, but what I think is so ironic is the question that you asked today, and then the verse of the day that I got in my inbox. And so I want to share this because I think it was just interesting timing. And so today being August 16, 2023, the verse of the day was, "All praise to God, the Father, our Lord Jesus Christ. God is our merciful Father and the source of all comfort. He comforts us in all of our troubles so that we can comfort others. When they are troubled, we will be able to give them the same comfort God has given us." 2 Corinthians 1, 3-4. And I think that really summarizes the main purpose, my ignition and my fire inside to want to be there for others and comfort others because of the comfort that Jesus has given me in my life.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And with that, we'd like to thank Jamie once more for joining us today on Ask Anything. Jamie, it's been a pleasure to hear your story, to hear everything that you've had to say today. And we certainly are looking forward to finding your magazine. So if anybody out there wants to find it, please follow Jamie's instructions. Go look for them on Google, Facebook, everywhere you can find Special Needs Magazine, Special Needs Living Magazine. Thank you once again, Jamie.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening in to this week's edition of Ask You Anything presented by Mosher Consulting. We hope you enjoyed listening to Jamie McCabe talk to us about her life's journey. Join us next time when we continue to dive deeper with our resident experts and what they're currently working on. Remember to send us your ideas or topics via social media feeds. In the meantime, please remember to give us a rating and subscribe to our feed wherever you get your podcasts. Until then, so long, everybody.
Go.